joined today by Brad Gurrie, CEO of Socialsuite. Brad, thanks for your time.
Thanks, David. Great to be on the show.
For those who don't know the business, don't know the brand, what is Socialsuite?
Well, Socialsuite is a technology platform that largely deals with micro to mid cap companies to help them get started on their ESG journey. Today we've got 100 companies, just announced 100 companies on the platform, and that's in just under 2 years we've had 100 companies adopt the platform. So things are going from strength to strength as we see ESG becoming a very topical issue for not only the ASX 100, but largely the micro caps as well.
You touched on that ESG is now a focus of companies. A lot's been said about it. Why is it so important that ESG is now a focus for listed companies and investors?
Yeah, what we're seeing is that there's a lot of conjecture in the market about ESG. And I think when we boil it down on our position around ESG, it's largely an opportunity to assist investors to understand the inherent risks in companies. So as investors look at companies and assess their balance sheet and their profit and loss, this is an opportunity for those investors to start to look at their environmental, social and governance. The last thing an investor wants to do is put money into a company and then all of a sudden that there's a significant issue, whether it's environmental, social or a governance issue. And so this is a way that the investors can do due diligence on those organisations to ensure that their investments are more secure.
And what are you seeing from an ESG point of view when it comes to capital inflows, asset allocations?
Yeah, broadly speaking, the overall assets under management over the last year or so has been relatively stagnant, but what we're seeing is continued inflows into ESG. So there's some predictions by PwC by 2026 is that about 21.5% of all assets under management will take into some ESG factors. The ASX put some great research out in the last couple of weeks, and what it looked at was actually the retail investors and what are the demographics of people taking ESG factors into consideration. So what they were talking about was that 30% of all investments from retail investors is looking at ESG factors. But when you break that down, what's really interesting is that it's largely led by the age group of 18 to 49. And then the retirees are probably less focused around ESG. So that was looking at 15%. So as the world talks about this generational wealth change, these are key factors that really organisations need to take into consideration to be able to attract that younger investor.
Now, looking at retail investors, you have touched on them a couple of times. Why should they be focused on ESG?
Yeah, it really depends. A lot of retail investors say, well, we're in this to get returns, and I think that that's obviously a really important, it's the fundamental of investing. But what ESG can do for those retail investors is actually give some signals. So what we see is that organisations that are taking a long-term view, they tend to invest in ESG reporting because they know that that's an important tool that they're going to require to actually attract institutional capital. So a lot of the organisations that we're working with, have that confidence to take a long-term position. So it can be a great signal for retail investors around that. Also, going back to that earlier point, is it's a way of being able to assess risk, and organisations that are adopting that, you just know that they're taking these things into consideration as they're operating their organisation.
A world-class ESG platform, a significant opportunity and a clear market leader in the space. Brad, thanks for your time.
Thanks, David.